It all lines up perfectly. The Azeroth revamp evidence is clear. Now, we know specific zones are getting revamped, like, Silver Moon, that whole upper part of the Eastern Kingdoms. It looks like, obviously, Northrend has been talked about getting revamped. But what else? What else has Bellular found out here? Let's see what he's talking about.
Okay, you probably clicked this video because you're interested in Azeroth, right? If the old world will be made anew.
Yes.
And what the next few expansions will bring. How Azeroth will exist, and beyond the World Soul Saga, what the hell Blizzard intends to do. Now, before any of that happens, we'll go to Kaz Algar. All that exists of it right now is this big X on the map. What that X actually marks is an island called the Isle of Dorn, with most of the War Within taking place deep below. With that expansion, Blizzard are going deep, not wide with this one. And as they build...
That's right. Going deep, baby. Not wide. It is interesting that this whole thing is going to happen. It's a vertical expansion. The first one that we've seen like that, where literally we're going up and down rather than spread out wide. It probably has to do with, all of the tech that we got for the Zarlek Caverns and all that shit going underground, no loading screens. But I hope we get some interesting stuff out of this rather than just keep, staying underground for days on end. We'll see.
Another division of Team 2 is, as we speak, rebuilding Quel'Thalas, such is their parallel development pipeline. And as they do that, they'll be making new assets. And for one new example of that, take a look at this image of the Isle of Dorn. Does it not look exactly like Loch Modan to you? It's just another example of something that's been happening since Legion. The creation of modern assets for modern expansions that look just fine in the old world. Indeed, for many creatures, the old creatures, they've been replaced with the new ones.
Right.
So, asset-wise,
the new null models are nice.
The idea of a revamp, it makes sense. And
it does look like hobbits, right? Like, that's what I think every time I see this. Every time I see these images, I think, oh, this is the Shire. That's what it looks like. It looks like the Shire.
Re-establishment of Azerothian geopolitics, the lore too is ready. Ready for an Azeroth built to a scale so large it could not be achieved with a single expansion. That work, right now, is underway. As is our own growth, and that's aided by today's sponsor.
Oh, there it is.
Squarespace.com/Valuetheir Gaming. So here's the deal. They spent 2023 shipping loads of new features, and that means you've got to
Sam, how tall are you?
Their already amazing site editor has got fairly massive new features. Fluid Engine is probably my favorite. It lets you just put things where you want. You know the clunk of most site builders? They've just kind of got rid of that, so that's sweet.
Yeah, King Julian, I see what you're saying about the book's release date.
Lets you build your own Squarespace template from scratch. And between these
this is a short stories. It's not really a pre-book, pre-expansion book, so I think this one's a bit different.
You can also make an awesome link in bio to go with your new website. It just makes it so easy to get yourself out there online. And the same
was hoping for a Raid Shadow Legends
design that led to their award-winning templates being so, it shines through everything that they do.
Maybe one day I'll have a Raid Shadow Legends
regardless of design experience, can make a modern, slick-looking website with lovely fonts, lovely colors, and that's responsive across mobile, tablet, and desktop. And what's amazing is this: you can make an account today and build your site for free using my link. It's actually really fun, be it just a quick personal page or maybe your portfolio if you're, say, an artist or a photographer. I think you'll feel a nice sense of accomplishment at the end, and when you're ready to send it live, you can use code Bellular Gaming to get 10% off their annual plan.
There you go, use this code. Do it.
Let me remind you of Blizzard's official stance on the idea of a world revamp. Ian Hazacosta said this, quote, "We're definitely open to it at some point. If you take a step back and look at the world, we've painted ourselves into a corner where we have these iconic locations, but we've already used them." So yes, they get it. And that quote is not just Ian telling us they're open to the idea, it's him doing so just before the reveal of the World Soul Saga.
Right.
And that means, well, what happens when the saga is done? That's where we've got to review the world.
This is the part of it where people have been like, yeah, what happens after the World Soul Saga is complete? What happens after Infinity War and Marvel? Evidently, it goes to shit. But for WoW, hopefully that's not the case. A lot of people have talked about, including myself, is this the WoW 2 moment? Is Azeroth awakened? The entire surface is reborn. Bam. Everything's remade in a new up-res version. WoW 2. Welcome in, boys. The reset. But who knows if that's what's actually going to happen. But it is interesting to look beyond the War Within and wonder what's the future of the game going to look like.
Warcraft. Azeroth and Kalimdor, both stuck in the Cataclysm. The Burning Crusade. Well, you don't really need to revamp that. Warlords of Draenor sort of already did that.
Yeah,
but
well, it
Outland
looks good.
is not all
doesn't need a
that was
revamp.
in the Burning Crusade. We have Quel'Thalas, Azure Mist, and Blood Mist Isle, all on our home continents, but added in the Burning Crusade. The Midnight expansion is seeking to revamp Quel'Thalas. It's all about light versus void, so I wouldn't even be surprised if the Draenei homeland saw some love. And then we have Wrath of the Lich King and Northrend. Well, the Last Titan is doing a full revamp of Northrend.
Yeah, he did say
These
that.
These are massive core regions to World of Warcraft, and yes, large things happened elsewhere in future expansions, but considering Warcraft 3, which is the heart, the root of WoW, it's Eastern Kingdoms, Kalimdor, and Northrend. Pandaria and beyond, I honestly believe they can stay safely as they are.
Yeah.
They look and they feel new enough. Their lore, it's not vital to Warcraft's core.
And actually, supposedly, the Pandaria was getting a slight revamp. And that, that whole Pandaria, well, God, it's 10.2.7. It's called a time-running pandemonium. There are changes being made to the content of Pandaria to kind of update it as time has passed. That's what we've seen, like supposedly like rebuilding of statues and stuff. But nobody's really sure exactly what it means or how revamped it's going to be. But yeah, Pandaria looks good. It doesn't really need the facelift that a lot of the rest of Azeroth looks like.
So, returning to the home continents then. We just reclaimed Gilneas, but...
Yeah, these kinds of things need not necessarily a revamp, maybe Gilneas, but it definitely needs to be redone. So it feels like a city. Right now it just feels like, oh, we took the city back and there's a couple NPCs walking around. Yeah, that needs to be changed.
There are more Scarlets out there. The Night Elves have a new home in the Dragon Isles, but they are still set in rebuilding their Kalimdor holdings and one day even regrowing a new home from the ashes of Teldrassil. Say what you want about Sylvanas,
was a 2 out of 10.
She
yeah,
certainly did leave
lacking.
that soil rather fertilized. These are clear hooks for Blizzard to use later, but there's more than that. Take Dagran II, son of Moira, the Emperor of the Dwarves. The Council of the Three Hammers is not a permanent solution to rule. It was something built to govern their kind while he comes of age. I mean, I've long wondered why HD dwarf retextures kept on showing up in the data mining, why they needed to build new Ironforge guards and new steam tanks. Surely then, the ascension of an emperor, the beginning of a new era, demands a facelift of Ironforge. You might be wondering, how is all of this possible? Well, in my view, World of Warcraft's patch cadence does it. Dragonflight has seen 4 Heritage Armor questlines so far, and with the Draenei and the Trolls in 10.2.7, that will be 6. It will also be the end, where everyone will have had a Heritage Armor quest. Beyond that, what are we doing? Holidays or something new? If I were betting, I'd be betting on something new. And given that there is so much just lingering around these areas, and that with Gilneas we're clearly able to revisit these areas without doing a full revamp, I think that means the Blizzard can still have action set in our home continents over the next few years.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Fundamentally, Ian talked about them being painted into a corner. Well, the good news is they're expending ludicrous amounts of effort and money painting themselves out of that corner. Midnight then. Dynamic flight is now a core thing. It's how we move around the world. It's fast. It's so fast that Azeroth feels tiny, unless it's at the scale of the Dragon Isles, a place that canonically is not that big, but in-game is about the same size as Northrend.
Yeah.
4 modern zones taking up the space that, per old Warcraft, built with epic flying in mind, was 10 zones. That's the ratio we're dealing with, and that makes the Midnight revamp fascinating. You may be worried that would stretch us too thin, but not really. You see, maps of Quel'Thalas have been inconsistent for a long time. Quel'Thalas, it has actually moved multiple times in different locations. The size of the Amani Trolls land has also changed.
Yeah, I hope we get some Amani Troll lore coming out with the revamp and everything. The Amani Trolls are cool, man. They should be playable, too. They're just buff trolls.
Indeed, these forest trolls, they inhabited an area that once was half the size of Quel'Thalas, but now they're currently stuffed into a small corner of the Ghostlands. And hell, without the Scourge, what's even going on with the Ghostlands? This is where the revamp can actually do work. Have the Forest Riders retaken Windrunner's Spire? Is it the perfect place for the Void Elves to move into? What have they done? What could malign Void forces do within the Ghostlands, an area, of course, that is, well, under its soil, littered with the bones of the dead? It is then easy to see the expansion of these areas. As for Silvermoon, well, a rebuilt Silvermoon is the natural...
This is going to be unbelievable, because they've talked about this revamp not just being like, oh, we're up-resing the textures. This is going to be like completely rebuilt from the ground up, which makes sense because Silvermoon is actually still stuck in the old BC engine, like pre-flight, even so. You can't even fly in Silvermoon still. And to redo it, I guess to redo what they've already made would be a lot of work, so they're just rebuilding it completely. I am so interested to see what Silvermoon's going to look like, because this is a freaking beautiful city. It's just been forgotten. It's a lost asset. But to see it up-resed and remade, oh man. And I hope they heal the dead scar so we can actually walk through the main entrance, because the Silvermoon that we currently have, you walk through like some janked side entrance. You can't even go through the main gates because they're still broken. So hopefully they fix that.
Evolution of Borealis and Valdrakken.
It can look like Suramar, yeah. I hope they take Suramar as an example of that is a true city. That city felt alive. That's an amazing city.
For elfkind. Another core
yes, would be great, most
said
definitely.
In Midnight is the reuniting of lost elven tribes. And indeed, if you speak to Ilaria Windrunner in the Stormwind Embassy, she will say that one day Silvermoon will stand with the Alliance. Or I suppose rather her people, the High Elves, will. Now, inject.
I definitely think if they remake Silvermoon and they put all this work into rebuilding it completely from the ground up, that it's going to be a cross-faction city. I imagine it being that way because they talk about that the Midnight expansion being about the uniting of the elves, right? And that's what that whole expansion is going to be about. So if you're uniting the elves, you can't like keep them out of your city. I mean, Void Elves are literally elves that prior lived in Silvermoon. So are the High Elves. You know, they both called Silvermoon home. So, yeah, I imagine it being a cross-faction city, and because it's going to be a cross-faction city, they're going to put some major detail and work into it.
Files of creativity.
And probably be the hub city for that expansion.
Up there. Maybe
I wouldn't be surprised.
Night Elf Quarter. And if some fan theories are to be true, maybe even a Naga Quarter. Moving north, though, Quel'Danas is not only the focus of the expansion, but it's its biggest opportunity. They can resize the island fully for dragon riding. They can make it massive and place a great Sunwell raid in the center. Quel'Danas could even land big cosmic patch zones, like our first trip to Koresh, the ethereal homeworld destroyed by Dimensius, who does happen to be lining up with... well, Xal'atath, and that all is.
Yeah, I made a whole video about this, that we could play through the whole ethereal storyline and actually maybe see what the ethereals looked like prior to what they are now. They didn't always look like a freaking mass of magic bound in bandages. They had to do that to themselves to keep their bodies, together after what happened to their planet and to them. So I'd be interested to go back in time maybe and see what happened to the ethereals, to see what could happen to Azeroth if we lose.
Well, Xal'atath, and that all is connected to Midnight. But that's getting away from Azeroth. Core point here, Quel'Danas will be greatly expanded in size and detail. Many story elements will finally be brought up to the current day. For Blizzard to craft it at its new scale, expect a full home for the Amani, an expanded Ghostlands, awesome. Expanded Eversong, rebuilt Silvermoon, and a far larger Quel'Danas. An in-game region that finally will be worthy of its canonical importance. Something that is very true of Northrend's original introduction to WoW. Something that was absolutely loved at the time, and something the updating
still has the best music in the game.
Task for the last Titan. There is more to Northrend than you know. Let me explain. During the War of the Scaleborn, both Iridikron and Verinoth had bases in Northrend. Iridikron's was called Harrowdeep. It was somewhere deep underground. Some speculate that it may not have been too far away from the place we now know as Icecrown. Just before that, in Fractures of Time, Iridikron had said that he would return when the Titans did, and then in the epilogue, he left the story for the foreseeable future. He's almost certainly going to come back in The Last Titans, so no doubt his return could bring with it Harrowdeep, his old base, which is in Northrend.
Yeah.
That's something that does make me think of Northrend's underground potential. Xal'atath, of course, has only stepped out of the shadows because the old gods are a bit dead, but in exploring Azeroth, Northrend, Magni, and Bran, they find evidence of Yogg-Saron's lingering madness. The puzzle box of Yogg-Saron even gets a mention in that book. It's said to have never been opened, but that its opening will foreshadow terrible...
The man of the curse of flesh. I definitely think... We've talked about it. I just mentioned it like earlier. We were talking about the new book that's being released. The Curse of Flesh, we're going to dive back into that. We're going to talk more about it. I think they're going to explore it more, talk about how, we have the races that, the Vrykul, the humans, the dwarves, the gnomes, all Curse of Flesh, right? And then we have the originals, the original denizens of Azeroth, like the trolls. We see now that the goblins are going to get more storyline fleshed out in the coming expansions. So there's going to be a lot of that, like creatures of original Azeroth, creatures of the Titans, and of course, you got to talk about Yogg if you're going to do that.
Consequences for any who do. I suppose then that's another bullet loaded into Chekhov's gun. Now, part of this that I'm torn on is Azul Narub, because on the one hand, it was always planned to be a humongous underground zone in Wrath of the Lich King. They never quite did it, so doing it now would make a lot of sense to finish that unfinished business. But on the other hand, the War Within...
Yeah, they were building out this city. Like, we were supposed to come to this place, and then it eventually became like just the instance that we got, you know? Like, this whole city was supposed to be somewhere we could actually go. And now we're getting Azkahet, as they're calling it. So that is going to be a fully fleshed out Nerubian city. I'd be interested to see how this is going to go. I'd love to do, if they do Azkahet, you know, this whole Nerubian city, I don't just want it to be a zone that we visit in an instance or something. I hope it is, we know it's going to be a playable zone, but I hope we can go into the city like we used to go into Suramar. Like, maybe transform into a Nerubian or something. Maybe those new humanoid-looking Nerubians, and then be able to walk around the city and kind of see what it'd be like to be a Nerubian in WoW. I think that'd be awesome.
So it's a question of, 3 years after the War Within, would we still have an appetite to go back to a Nerubian-related area? Anyhow, as for the Scourge, well, the Ebon Blade have permanently moved to Icecrown to mop up what remains.
My boys.
Winterguard is now a fortress, but even after trying to shoot her down, Naxxramas floats just outside and still is disgorging Scourge. And while the Scourge are there, the major story of them is that they have fallen apart, that they don't have leadership anymore. And that gives space for the rest of the continent to breathe. Koldara will be blue Dragonflight territory. It will be friendly. You can imagine what Wyrmrest will look like post-Dragonflight, post-revamp. Maybe you'll see the elves doing something with Vordrasil in the Grizzly Hills. There is indeed a deep connection to Yogg-Saron that was always intended to be there and intended to be explored more in Wrath of the Lich King. That is something that they will be able to do with this expansion's Northrend revamp. What are the Naga in the Borean Tundra going to be doing? Maybe if some of them have a reunification with the elves in Midnight. Have the Tuskar return to their ancestral homes without Kvaldir attacks? There is endless, exciting potential. Clearly, you can see that.
I mean, Blizzard just going to tease, you know, these guys being playable one day. I still think we're going to get them. I think the Tuskar are going to be playable by the end of Dragonflight. Just a little surprise towards the end, but they gave all this detail to their character models and everything, and they're still not playable. It's like the biggest holdout in all of WoW. Playable Tuskar, one day.
Clearly, you can see the massive potential here. One group I haven't mentioned are the Vrykul. I think that they are perfect for this expansion. Yes, they were once our enemies, but you could see how they could be our friends, given they are literally our ancestors, and also given the resurgence of Tyr, a being that many Vrykul very much did respect and perhaps even worship a bit. And the idea of there being an allied race, well, it does make a lot of sense. Many say Naga for Midnight. I think that does actually make sense. We see the Earthen with the War Within, so why not another fan-requested Titan-descended
ally? If people say, oh, how are you going to do Naga? They can't equip armor, or like, how's the model going to look? Well, now that we got the Drakthir, I think they can just give him a humanoid form, like a scaly-looking elf that can transform into a Naga, and when you're in the Naga form, just like the current Drakthir form, it just doesn't show a lot of armor. You could show like just the shoulders or something. But otherwise, if you want to show your full armor set, you go into your scaly boy elf form. You know, why not? More races that can play on Moonguard in the middle of the night.
So why not another fan-requested Titan-descended allied race in this expansion?
They probably go into their humanoid form to
that
mount.
Will change everything when its conclusion comes. The whole point is that this is when the Titans come back. We'll likely go back to Ulduar. We will see just how deep the Titans' chains run.
Yeah,
what's
I agree,
really
Azami.
going on. And the other side of this is very clear. Okay, stay with me. Imagine it's the year 2029.
Jesus. Freaking ads.
Blizzard have already revamped vast swathes of Azeroth, right? Quel'Thalas, Northrend, maybe other bits along the way. Maybe they have kept those older world affairs up to date, using content akin to Heritage Armor questlines. But now it's 2029. They have a gargantuan library of assets. 2029 is also something special. Not only is it the end of the World Soul saga, based on their current and proposed timings, it's also the 25th anniversary of World of Warcraft.
Damn.
That will happen November 24th, 2029.
Oh, man, but I'm thinking about I'm going to be freaking 2029. I'm going to be 39 years old. Holy crap. I used to think back, I'd be like, I won't be playing this game, you know, when I'm in my late 20s, when I'm in my 30s. Here I am, I'm still playing, I'm 33. So I cannot assume that I will not be playing. I will be playing, I'm sure of it. Yeah, 2029, looking forward to it.
It's a major milestone that comes at the end of a Grand 3
Got married, had kids, still
arc.
playing.
Thinking then of what Ian said just before World Soul Saga was revealed, the future is clear. Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms. These would be the largest, the most ambitious rebuilds of all. And be it in 1 or 2 expansions, by World Soul Saga's end, Blizzard will find themselves with a team who are very experienced in remaking old Warcraft zones. A team with access to a massive...
Okay. Judging on your receding hairline, you thought I was 40 plus. It's not receding, okay? My hairline's fine. It's coming from the back. I'm balding from the back to the front. All right, the hairline's not screwed just yet. It will be
library
probably
of
by the time I'm
assets
30,
and
39.
A pacing requirement of patch cadences, etc., that will fit the revamp. World Soul Saga's ending will likely be so grand that it will even dwarf the ending of Legion, but the problem is you cannot escalate further from there. Aman'Thul cannot fall over and with his last words utter that a cosmos divided will not survive what is to come. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of sorry for poking you in the Shadowlands, but I did do it to make a point. Point is, a period of exhaling, of breathing, of re-establishment, of, in a sense, a World of Warcraft 2. Us re-exploring the lands that we started in all those years ago. A time that can act as a reset of power creep. One that, like with World of Warcraft's first release, will just let us be in the world. Essentially, a new foundation.
Yeah,
and that
I like the sound of that.
Be that. The biggest questions of Warcraft answered by the end of the World Soul Saga, ushering in Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, joining Northrend and Quel'Thalas in a revamp, fundamentally leaving us with a fully modern and ready to go into the future World of Warcraft.
Good morning, Helena.
That's what I think is happening. Okay, let me know what you think is happening. To me, this is a plan that honestly is fairly exciting. I mean, this, with roughly something going on every 8 weeks, I mean, damn, it actually does seem like a pretty damn good time to be a Warcraft fan. That is it for today's video. If you want to dive into some of the deeper lore of the World Soul Saga, specifically of The Last Titan, you can check out this video. We've had so much lore on the channel, so check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. And with that, I will see you next time.
Yeah, look. What I have to say about WoW and its future is Microsoft did not purchase Activision Blizzard with the intent of letting WoW die. Okay, MMOs are a big investment, but there's a big future for them. That's why you see companies like Amazon and Riot and all these others.
Drinking coffee every day didn't...
Jesus, man. You see them basically pushing hard, right, to create MMOs. And that's because having an MMO in a future where we're talking about metaverse and all this other shit, yeah, it's going to be a big play, and you're going to want to have one. So establishing World of Warcraft going forward, resetting it, that makes sense. I think it's something Microsoft's going to want to do, and I think it's something, honestly, that's already planned to happen at the end of the World Soul Saga, just like Belial was describing.